Hey creative friends, welcome to my channel, and in this video I am finally going to try to put my quilt together. So I have my quilt that I've shown a few times, and I showed a couple videos on how I made it. This is a paper piece quilt that I'm super excited about because I've never done this. Now I had to go buy some backing and some batting and some border pieces. So what I had picked, and the lady at the Joann's, she actually, her husband used to work with my husband. She's very, very sweet. She showed me this fabric. See, it's got the little daisies, which I think will go kind of cute with all this because there's a bunch of little floral and stuff, and I think it'll be fine. And the cool thing about this is it's extra wide, so I won't even probably have to put two pieces together. So there's the backing. Then I'm just going to do a black border, and I know how to cut this now. So if you are a quilter, I'm learning, okay? So don't be mean. I'm trying. So what I have to do, oh, and then I got the batting. Got that white cotton batting. So what I have to do, and I'm going to do this on the kitchen floor, and I'm going to take you guys in there to show you. Basically, I have to lay the backing down, and then lay the batting down, and then lay the quilt top that I sewed together down, and then cut the batting and backing so that they're bigger than the quilt top, because it can like shrink in a little bit when you're quilting it. So a tip was given to me that if I wanted to make sure, just kind of get it down there so it doesn't slide around, I'm going to use a little bit of this quilt basting spray just to kind of touch it so that it kind of sticks together a little bit. And then once that's down, then I'll have to go around and pin through all the layers. And these were my mom's, and I know that these were what she used for quilting, because if you ever use these for anything else, she'd sure let you know. But this way you can scooch it through the quilt and bring it up, and it's not like having a straight when it's got that little bend, so that's going to work. So there you have it. So I'm going to get this in the kitchen. I'm going to lay it all out, and then I'll take you guys in and show you where I'm at. And then I'll show you basically, once it's all together, the way I'm going to quilt it. I'm kind of going to, you know, cheat, I guess. I'm not doing anything fancy, but see the lines, like these lines that go here, there, and then there. I'm going to, and then these, I'm just going to quilt down those lines. So I will go like down these lines right here. So where the squares kind of come together. And I got quilting thread. I got white. This is for the top of the quilt, but I also got black. So I got the black cone for the back. This will go in the bobbin so that you can't like see the white strips or the little stitches across the black backing. So let me get you in the kitchen. I'm going to lay all this out on the floor, and I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, I just wanted to show you, this is actually, I had to move my dining room table. This is too big for the kitchen. So, but this is that one piece of fabric, so I don't need to stitch any other pieces together, which is cool. So I laid it with the pretty side down, with the right side down, and then to keep it nice and smooth, I went around, I don't have any painter's tape, so I just used a little Scotch tape to tape it down. And now I'm going to lay the batting out on there, and then the top, and I'll show you when we get to that point. Okay, I feel like this is actually kind of funny because now I got that whole thing out here and I'm feeling really good about my quilt, and then I take the top off and it's just this little thing. But that's fine. I still think it's going to be perfect. So now I have all three layers down, but what I'm going to do is carefully fold back and then spray a little of that basting spray and then put it down, and then fold back the quilt and do the same thing. I'm going to cut it first. I'm going to cut, you know, a little around it, and then I'm going to fold back and give it a little of that basting spray to hold it in place, and then I'll pin it. Okay, I hope you guys can see this. So I've cut around my little quilt, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this back a little bit, make sure this is all flat. And you know, this is the beauty of YouTube and TikTok, because I have taught myself how to quilt. Not really. And then I'm going to spray a little bit of this quilter's, what is it called? Quilt basting spray. And then I'm going to just fold this back, kind of make sure that it stays nice and flat. There we go. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the top. Just kind of fold it up. And I guess people, not all the people use this, but somebody on a video said it's handy, especially when you're a newer quilter, to just kind of keep your layers a little bit stuck together, and it helps keep them flat. So let's see how that worked. Oh yeah. So I can really kind of slide my hand over it and really make it nice and flat. So see there, like if I lift this, see how it's all stuck together? Oh, you can't see. Oh no, hang on, let me move it. Can you see there? There you go. So if I take this little bit here, see how it all sticks together? So I'm going to do that to the whole thing and give it a good rubbing to make sure that that's all nice and crisp and flat on there. And then I will come back and show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, I was able, because it was smaller, I was able to pick it up easily because of the how it's stuck together with that spray, that basting spray. Anyway, I was able to kind of look over the back, make sure that's all nice and flat, no wrinkles. When I was doing that, I also did get a wrinkle in the batting, but I was able to just kind of peel it up, straighten the batting, and put it down. I really kind of like using that to make it more secure, especially for me since I'm, you know, not a pro. So anyway, I put this protecting mat down. This is one of those cutting mats, and I put my quilt on top of it, and I'm giving it a really good rub to make sure everything, all the wrinkles are out of it. I just feel like that's super important. And now, that's the edge of the mat, so I can see that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start in the middle, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's this one, and it's 4 over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right here would be the middle, and I'm going to start putting safety pins in to kind of hold it even more. So that one, now I don't know about this. I watched my mom do this. So she would take it with the bent side down. Where did I say it was? That one. And just go down, and because that mat is under there, it can catch the mat and then pick up all 3 layers and curve right back up because that bend is in that safety pin. So now I'm going to do that all over to make sure it stays absolutely flat. And then I'm just going to take it to my machine, and I'm going to go down these lines, and then I'm going to go down these lines. And the way I'm going to do that is to start in the center and go one way, and then come back and go the other way, and do like these 4 lines to kind of make sure that it stays flat. And then I'll go up 1 and down 1, and up 1 and down 1. That's the lady at the quilt shop showed me that. So let me get this pinned, and then we'll come back. Okay, I've got all of these little pins in here, and I've got them pretty much like every block, but I put them in the center of each block because I'm not going to stitch over that. And then that way I left this one right at that center seam right there, so I know that's where the center, and that's where I need to start. So I probably could have used more pins, but I don't have them. So there you have it. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the white thread in the top of my machine, but I'm going to run a couple of bobbins with the black because I feel like I'm going to need 2 or 3 bobbins. So I'm going to go ahead and run extra bobbins so that I can just switch them out instead of having to run bobbins when I run out. So we'll do that, and then I'll take you in the sewing room and we'll go from there. All right, I'm on my machine, and I'm going to show you kind of how I set things up. First of all, let me take you back a little bit. I have one of these, it's called a Sew Steady or whatever. It's like an acrylic table that fits right up next to my sewing machine, and that's going to help hold my quilt flat. So that seems to help. And I have so much stuff on my table that it just gets bunched up. So we're doing fine. The other thing I did, let me bring you over here, see if I can bring you down. I put my walking foot on so it will pull the top at the same rate that the bottom is pulled. That way it'll stay together. And the other thing I did, which I forgot to show you, was I set everything up. I've got the black thread in the bottom and the white thread on top. And what I did was I ran 1 needle down and then back up, so that then I pulled this forward a little bit, and I pulled both strings, or both threads, the black and the white, are at the top. Now, I saw that that's what you're supposed to do, so clearly what's going to happen at the end of that, I'll be able to tie that and then sew it down into the quilt so that it's got a good knot on it and it won't maybe come undone. So that's what I did so far. And now I'm going to start taking a few steps here on my quilt. I've got it kind of bunched up under the throat of the sewing machine. And now let's see how it goes. Let's see how we're doing. And this is going to take a long time because I am going to make sure that I keep stitching right where I need to stitch. So I'm going to stitch all the way to the end. Then I'm going to spin my quilt around and then stitch all the way to that end. Then I'm going to stitch in these two directions. I'm going to stitch that way too. So that way we can get this quilt quilted. So let me get some things stitched and I'll come back to you and show you what progress we're making. All right, this is this is when you can really tell that your corners don't match. But you know what? This is just, I have to keep telling myself, this is just to put over a picnic table when we go on a picnic or go camping. So it doesn't have to be perfect. But darn it, I want everything to be perfect, you know? But oh well. It's probably not going to be, but hey, I'm still going to put my name on it and say this is the first quilt I ever made. So, yeah, this is how you can tell that your corners don't always match. You know, I'm sitting here sewing this and I'm surprised. I don't know if this is a thing, but like I was pretty careful the whole time I was putting this together, and I thought, man, those corners look so good. But now I can really tell that a lot of them don't match, and I was kind of bummed because I thought, oh, I'll put this in the county fair just because it's my first quilt. And also, I don't care if I win a ribbon. I just like to encourage people to have, you know, more at the fair. I think it's cool when there's a whole lot of entries. Even if I didn't win a ribbon, it's just another entry so that there's more to look at when people go to the fair. So I might still, but holy cow, there's no way. There's no way that it's just so bad. But you know what? You only get better when you practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. So hopefully my next quilt that I already bought the fabric for, that I'm going to try to see if my Cricut can cut the squares, you know, maybe that'll get better. And I don't know, maybe this is why people make tons of quilts there all the time, because they just have to keep getting better and better. But I admire people that do these incredible quilts. They're a lot of work, but they're very rewarding. And they're super cool, and I just hope to get better. So I'm just going to keep plugging away and get this thing quilted up, and then I'm going to come back, because what I have to do for the binding, I have to take the black fabric and then cut 2.5-inch strips and then fold it in half and iron it. Well, I have to sew them together, and there's a way you sew them together. And then fold it and iron it so it makes like wide bias tape, and then stitch it around after I trim the edges to match the quilt top. Stitch it around that, fold it over, stitch it again, and then it will be bound and quilted and done and ready for probably no ribbon at the county fair, but I'm going to enter it anyway. I found a wee bit when I was going along here, just a tiny little section of fabric that didn't get caught in the seam, so I just zigzagged. I patched it right here while I'm working. I just zigzagged over it and kind of patched it down, so I already have an owie on my quilt. This is so funny. Okay, I went one way and now I'm turning around and going the other way. But one thing I learned from this, like this was all scraps, so that's fine. But really I just want to learn kind of the process, and like I've watched a bunch of videos and I wanted to try it out, see how it worked. But one thing I have learned is to look at each square, and if the corners don't match, like they don't match right there but they do right there, maybe instead of putting the squares together where the corners don't match, I could have taken the squares and bordered them, like put black around them, and then that black would have sewn to black, and you wouldn't really have been able to tell that the points don't match, you know, the corners of the points. So that's something I learned, and I really am kind of excited about trying more. Just the techniques, you know, just the how you do it is what I wanted to know, and now I got that. So now I'm going to work on how to do it better. So anyway, that's something I learned though, is to look at it and figure if this square right here, if this square is not going to butt up correctly, like this one is perfect, but this one is off a wee bit. This one is perfect. And that one's perfect. But this one's off a wee bit. Maybe to look at those and see if they're not going to match, I could have just put little black strips between them, and then they would probably stand out a lot better too. But those are things now that I know. Okay, I have done all my stitching now. These and like angled. Now these little bits in the middle that I had the 2 strings. Let me see. There you go. I'm just going to tie those in a little knot, and then I'm going to take a needle and pull them into the quilt, so that way you don't have like a loose thread where the quilt starts. This is what I saw on a video of a quilter lady that seemed to be pretty amazing. So now I'm just going to thread this. Now this quilt, then I'm going to take all the pins out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to take my big cutting mat and my rotary cutter and my long, see, I'm just going to thread that into the quilt batting right there at the seam. You see, there we go. Anyways, to kind of hide it in there. So that will be fine. There we go. And then trim it off. There you go. Now it buries itself down in the quilt. So I'm going to take all the pins out. Then I'm going to take my rotary cutter, whoop, and my cutting mat and my big ruler, and I'm going to cut all the sides along the edge. So I'm going to cut this. Hang on a second. There we go. So I'm going to cut it all along the edge of the quilt. So all this is gone, and all I have is this top. Because see, it's stitched all the way out to the side. So that'll be fine. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to take my black fabric and cut 2.5-inch strips and sew those together for the binding. So let me get this done, and I'll see if I can take you out there. And if I have room on my table, I'm going to have to put my other little, my cutting mat, but there it is, back on there. And we'll put that on there, and then we'll do some cutting. But I decided, you know, people name these things. Anyway, people name their quilts. Like they usually have like a title, like what they call their quilt. And I have decided I am going to name this quilt From a Distance, because you don't want to look at it close up. But that is going to be my From a Distance quilt. And it's my very first one. So let me get this done, and I'll take you out and we'll trim the edges and we'll get the next part done. Alright, I've already cut this edge straight. I've got my cutting mat and my long ruler. And now I'm going to turn it around and cut all this off the edge here. And this is straight across the bottom. You know that. So now I'm just going to lay this down here and run my ruler up there to make a nice side on here where I'm going to put, I'm going to put my batting, or my binding. So once I have this all done, then I'm going to take the black fabric and I'm going to cut 2.5-inch strips off that. So let me go ahead and finish cutting the edge of this, and then I'll come back and show you how I cut that. Okay, there I've got all of the trim, or the excess off. So now it's just the quilt top. You can see all 3 of the layers there. So I think the back turned out super cute too. So now I'm going to take this black fabric and I'm going to cut 2.5-inch strips so that I have enough of that for my binding. So as soon as I'm done with that, I will come back and we'll sew this together to make the long binding that goes around the outside. Okay, now I've got all these 2.5-inch strips. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and I'm going to sew them to make one super long strip. Now, mind you, I told you my mom owned a quilt store and she never taught me to quilt, because the whole time she owned the quilt store, pretty much, Brian was in the Navy and we lived in Japan and we lived in Hawaii and we weren't close to where she could teach me these things. So I learned just by trying to look at some books and online. So I hope I'm, like I've said many times while I'm doing this, if I'm doing it wrong, don't be rude, help me learn. There's a whole different thing there. So, so now I'm going to put these at an angle like that. And then I'm going to sew from corner to corner across here. So that's the thing I think about social media, you know, people are trying to learn something. I'm just going to vent here for a minute while I'm doing this. And people just want to jump on the bandwagon and be rude. I am so lucky because all you guys, my followers, are so supportive and so awesome. But every once in a while I've had to block someone because they just come on and they're rude. You know, they're just no reason to be rude. Help someone learn. That's the point. But all of my subscribers are the best. You guys are awesome. I can't see that corner. There we are. Okay, so I'm going to go corner to corner. And I appreciate all of you because you're awesome that way. So I think we have a great community here. Okay, so there's that. I think I should go back a little bit. Okay. So now we trim that, and then see, you pull it forward, and then you've got your whole strip. So now I'm going to go down. Sorry for my little vent, you guys. So now I'm going to go down and I'm going to connect all of these strips. I feel like I'm going to have more than I need, but I can always trim it off if it's too long. So let me go do all of the rest of these, and then I will trim these off. This, I will cut it, whoop, right there, and then I'll lay it out, and I'm going to iron them in half. Like I'm going to iron them in half, and that's going to be the binding. So let me get all these sewn together, and then I'll come back. All right, I've got all these sewn together, and then I went and I trimmed where they're joined. I trimmed the little things off. Now I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to iron it in half. And then it's going to go on the quilt. So let me get this ironed, and then I might have to go watch a video because there's a way to do the corners, but I don't remember how when you start it, if you leave, I think you leave like a few inches, like 6 inches or something, and then you come, yeah, you have to. So you're going to leave that, and then they sew together. So let me iron these, and then we'll come back. So I've got this all ironed in half, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a tail quite a ways, maybe a foot or so, and then I'm going to match up the edge of the quilt to the edge of the binding here. Let me get my quilt out of the way. So I'm just going to match that up, and then I've got these little clips. You can use pins too. I'm going to use pin on the corner. So then I'm going to do these little clips, and I'm going to put them along the side, and then we'll sew it. So what happens is after I sew it, then it flips over to the other side and you stitch it, and looky, there's a binding. But there's a way to do the corners so it's a mitered corner, which I'm going to do a pin on. I saw a lady do this and she wasn't even pinning it. Like, she was so good. Okay, so you come to the corner, and then evidently what happens now is this piece, see, I just don't have a big old table where I can lay it down, but this piece, well, I do my dining room table, but I don't want to go back out there. So this piece, see if you can see, let's bring you over here, maybe face you down a bit there. So this piece is going to come to the corner, and then it's going to fold up. So let me get this out of the way. Now, it's going to fold up so that they run, hang on a second. I'm going to do it the way I saw that lady do it. Okay, so it's going to go that way, I think. And then, oh, no. Nope. It's going to go this way. Hold on a second. Let me get, I'm looking at a weird angle. Okay, I had my angle wrong. So it's going to go to the edge, and then it's going to go back. So these edges are even. And then it's going to go down like the direction of the quilt. See there? So it's going to go, see if you can see. It's going to go back, and then it's going to go down so that these edges, see that sharp corner? So then what happens is it folds over, and it kind of does that on the back and makes a nice mitered corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pin in there because I want that to stay right there. That's how I'm going to do all 4 of the corners. Ooh, I didn't like the way that was. That's the way all 4 corners will be done. So that will be perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue this all the way around, and then I'll come back when I start to do the trim. And actually, you know, poor old Brian's out there watching Jeopardy by himself. Usually we watch Jeopardy together, but, you know, I'm so close to getting done. And he's usually my taste tester. He could be a quilt tester when I'm done with this. But I want to finish it. Now I know why people say they stay up until like 1 o'clock in the morning working on quilts. Because you're just so close. All right, let me finish. Okay, I got a little confused. So I went back and watched another video. And the lady was good. It was at the Missouri Star website or YouTube channel. And she was so good. So she does not pin it. So I'm going to not pin it, which is fine. I have enough experience, you know, butting things up even. But her thing on the corner, which I think was a lot easier for me, is basically you get to the corner and then you stitch off at 1/4 of an inch off the corner. And then you just lay this way. And then you stitch there, and it works out perfectly. So I'm going to get started. Ooh, I'm a little nervous. And I'm going to stitch along the side, and when I get to a corner, I'll show you what I'm doing. Also, she just laid it, well, there's a clip. She just laid it where the edge of the presser foot is. So she just lined it up there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start there, and I'm just going to go along the edge of the binding to the edge of the quilt, and then we'll see how it turns out. I'll get to the corner, and I'll show you what I do there. Okay, and you might notice that I don't have my walking foot on. I took it off because I wanted to use the edge as the side to go along the binding and the edge of the quilt. And I wasn't comfortable with my walking foot because it also has a really big wide space in the center, and I kind of use it to measure. So now I'm going to do the way she did it, which is a little bit different. And this is the thing. People learn so many different ways. Now I want to wait for about 1/4 of an inch and then come off this side. So I'm just eyeballing it. That looks kind of good right there. And then off the side. Boom. Now she took this edge and basically went like that. Okay, so basically, so stitched along and came off the edge, and then I still have that sticky stuff on my fingers. I'm just telling you, that's what that is. My hands are clean. They just have that sticky stuff. Anyway, so she went along. So see, ooh, it's going to be good. So she went along the side there, and then kind of folded it up so it matches along this side and along that side. And I can see that because when you, okay, that's going to be perfect. Now, this is a whole lot easier than the other channel I saw where you had to pin everything and then measure. And then she had kind of a cool trick on how to put your binding together at the end once it's all the way around. So hang on. Let me get this going. And this is what I say. Like, I was trying to find out how to do this just right. And there's so many videos that show different ways of doing things. So I don't think that there's any particular right way of doing anything. Well, there probably is. My mom would have been a rule follower. She would have known there was a ways to do things. But seems like there's a lot of different ways. And also, since I don't have my walking foot, I'm able to grab back here and kind of create the tension that I need so that things don't get bunched up. So now I'm going to continue to go around. I'll show you the next corner again to show you how that goes, because I felt like that was just a whole lot easier than that other way. All right, we're coming up to this corner again. So I'm going to go straight to the corner, and about 1/4 of an inch before the end, I'm going to go off the side. So, oops, there's a string. Okay. So let's just keep going. And then, when this is all done, we'll have to iron it over to the other side, and then basically do this again. All right, about 1/4 of an inch. One more. And then off the side. Doop. Right there. Okay. Now, I'm going to do this, kind of just pull it around, and it makes like a natural little bend. So perfect. Okay, let me finish this and I'll come back. Okay, I've got all the way around, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to go in, I'll have to iron this over, and then stitch in the ditch right there. But how do you finish this? Well, I watched the lady at the, I think it's the Missouri Star quilt place. There were a bunch of ways of doing this, one lady like made a folded thing and then stuck it in there and stitched it. I just like this one the way she did it. I think this looks cool. So let me trim those. So she said, you figure out how wide is your binding, which is 2.5 inches. And then what you do is you overlap these by 2.5 inches. So I'm going to measure my 2.5. So I'm going to go to there. Oh, this is scary. It doesn't work. I'm going to have to start all over. But to overlap it by 2.5 inches. So see where that one's laying down. So that end is right there. So I'm going to come up 2.5 inches. Ooh, I hope it works, because if not, I really am going to have a problem. And then literally you cut that off at 2.5 inches. Okay. Now, now you do the same thing you just did, and you cross them like that and stitch, and then they lay down perfectly. So let me go just like where we were making the binding to begin with. So that is 2.5 inches. So once I do that, it should lay flat. Okay, so let me go try that. Okay, see my seam rippers out? I had to do this a couple of times. But it works out perfectly. But the challenge I had was I kept putting them together the wrong way. And what you need to do is do them, like, see, this is the outside where the crease is, and the crease. And you need to do them back to back like that. I kept trying to put them inside. So you want to take the one on your right or your left with the crease facing you, the one on your right with the crease facing you, and then put them like that, okay? Because then when they lay down, see, they're going to be fine. So now I need to cut this bit off. Okay. Let me cut this bit off right here. Perfect. And now, see, that's going to lay right along there. So you can see where I had to take it out because I sewed it together the wrong way a couple times. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish stitching this. Then I'm going to fold the whole thing over like that and iron it. And then I'll show you what that's done when I'm done with that. All right, I'm folding this over, and I am clipping this because I want where the stitching is from the front. You can see the line, and I want to make sure the binding goes over that. So I have to tell you guys, I have decided the binding is my least favorite part. So I want to trim a couple of these stray strings, and then fold this over nice. And then one of my corners is not looking great, but I'll get over it. So I'm pulling those down nice and tight, and then when I put these through my machine, I'm gonna have to make sure that I keep my hand down here where I can feel that seam to make sure that this binding gets caught under the stitching. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just going around and I'm ironing it down, and then I am clipping it. You could pin it, but I like these little clips. So, but this is my least favorite, I'm telling you. Oh, and then the corner, see how it just kind of folds back, and it makes this nice little mitered corner for you. That one, I need to trim that one a little bit and iron it, but it makes a nice little mitered corner for you, so when you do it that way. All right, I've gone around the whole quilt and folded it back, and I've pinned. Now I'm going to go around real slowly so that I can make sure I can feel. I'm going to go right in the ditch right here, they call it, stitch in the ditch. And I'm going to go real slow to make sure that I'm catching the quilt or the binding on the back. So let me get over here and get started on this, and then we'll see. I'll see if I can bring you over without hitting the iron. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Let's see. So then this is going to go right there. I'm going to get you right down in that ditch right there. So it's going to go right in between the binding. See, can you see? There you go. Right between the binding, right where the binding attaches. So I'm going to go real slow and go around the whole quilt, and I will come back because it will be done. All right, I've got all my binding on, and I'm pretty happy with it, but I'm excited. Like, this is the first one I ever did from scratch, from like start to finish, so I'm pretty proud of it. But let's go see if Brian thinks it's comfortable. And now I gotta already start planning my next quilt. All right, there it is. You usually taste my things, and what do you think of my quilt?
Fantastic.
Isn't it?
Yep.
I'm super excited about it. I think it turned out all right.
Yep.
Flick it over. I want to show everybody the back of it. See the back of it? It's like little flowers. I think it's good. I'm excited about it. Thank you. Cool. Alrighty, you guys. Thanks for watching. As always, thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.